So let's talk about Erador in triangle strategy. Is he a good unit? Are shields cool? Yes to both of those. So he is a tank. And what do tanks want to do? Generally, they want to run in or slowly walk in because he has a movement of 4, and then just kind of stand there and get smacked and then not die. That is his whole kit, essentially, aside from like 2 abilities. So you might notice he has insane physical defense and terrible magic defense. This is extremely important to take note of because essentially if he's exposed to 2 mages, he is dead. Unless he has invincibility from something like King Shield, if he gets hit by 2 magic users, he will very likely die. So you have to be careful when you position him. He can tank physical pretty easily between his high physical defense and steelback, but when you position him, if too many mages push into your position, they can easily drop him. So you have to be very careful with him. And also his 4 movement makes him hard to reposition. But aside from these weaknesses, let's go over his abilities and then like how you use him and what his strengths are. All right, so first ability, Provoke. It's an AoE Infuriate that has roughly a 70 to 80% chance to trigger, depending on if you're higher level than the enemies, but if they're the same level, it's around 70. So you will generally infuriate 1 foe if you try to infuriate 2 at minimum, just due to like odds. If there's more foes, you can infuriate, like, you have a higher chance of infuriating at least 1 of them. What it'll do is it'll make enemies just use basic attacks on you. So if you infuriate enemy mages, they will just smack you with a book for like 1 damage. So that's very useful for shutting down enemy mages and just kind of disabling them for 2 turns. So this is one of his best skills. And you're generally going to be using this and King Shield, which are his, in my opinion, 2 best abilities. Next we have Sprint. Increases move by 1 for 3 turns. So you can cast this on yourself. You can't use this on allies. And then you'll give him 5 move. He can kind of reposition a little bit better. It does cost 1 TP, but it's like an okay ability. It's just like, it kind of helps, but his movement's terrible in general. So, but he shouldn't be repositioning too often, so it's fine. Next we have Steelback. Decreases damage when being hit from behind. This more or less drastically reduces the amount of damage you take from crits from the back. So it allows you to be in the fray and get surrounded by enemies. Combined with his high physical defense, he can take quite a few hits. Even though he does have high physical defense, health, and steelback, he still can get comboed down really quickly from physical attacks. So that's something to keep in mind when using him. Next we have Ram Foe, which knocks enemies back. You can knock them off high ground. You can knock them into each other. You can deal good damage. You can reposition enemies. So if 2 enemies are far away, you can ram one of them towards the other one so they can get hit by another unit like Frederica's AoE. So that's an example of how that could also be used for like offense. For defense, you can just push foes away from other units. You can push them into a corner and then surround them. You can knock them into each other for just some damage or just to kill an enemy. Like if you ram foe from behind, it does pretty good damage for finishing. So it's pretty good use. It's pretty good skill. Next we have Physical Counter. He always counterattacks when taking damage. So one good thing with him, like one good thing about his kit is that as he's getting hit, he's constantly dealing chip damage to things in response. So when you Fury things and then they smack him, even if it's for 1 damage, actually even if it's for 0 damage, if you get hit for a 0, you will, like if you're invincible, he'll still counterattack. So even though it's a 0 and it's not, like the 0 is still considered damage. So you'll, like when you use King Shield, it infuriates all enemies, 100% success rate, and you're invincible. He will physical counter every single one that hits him. And he'll take no damage, but they'll take chip damage. So really useful ability. It's a passive. Next we have On the Attack. Raise your strength, but lower your physical defense. So when I first played as him, I didn't realize this lowered your defense. I thought it raised it. So I just, like kind of recently, because I just like quickly skimmed over it, and I'm like, oh, raise your strength and defense, cool. But it actually lowers your defense at the cost, like in order to raise your strength. So you can use this for like finishing, but if he's getting surrounded, this is usually a bad idea. If you're invincible, it's fine, because then your defense is irrelevant because you're invincible, but you can use this circumstantially and it can be okay, just to deal a little bit more damage. And then we have Desperate Defense. decrease damage taken when HP is at 50% or below. So this just makes him a little tankier. As far as I know, it's just a straight up damage reduction from all sources. So it's pretty useful for, you know, allowing him to hang on just long enough to catch a heal and reposition. Alright, next we have King Shield. Become invincible and infuriate all enemies within range for 1 turn. So he becomes invincible for 1 turn. So like as soon as you use it, until his next turn, he's invincible. So he can just get hit as many times as he will in between turns. And he will just keep smacking enemies back with physical counter and taking no damage. And also it's 100% infuriate. So this is a great skill to unlock, and this is one of his best skills for endgame, like in level 50 New Game Plus hard mode. So this is his best skill. I don't even use Provoke anymore because King Shield is so good. I just pump him with TP and then just spam King Shield, and it's insane. This is his like best tanking ability for sure. All right, so now we've gone over that. Let's go over his upgrades. So those are very important. Okay, so in rank 1, we have +5 damage. This is okay because you're going to be counterattacking things, so damage is useful. And he can smack with his shield for some extra damage, and he hits okay. He's kind of like Benedict in terms of strength, so if he like smacks a dude in the back with the shield, it can be useful. He's also good for follow-up attacks and triggering follow-up attacks with like Serenoa or Roland or someone, so pretty useful to have. Defense increase is useful to have. You want it on a tank. Strength increase, this is like low priority. I would say you should go for the +5 damage and then all the defensive and health stuff first and then get this. But these are all cheap, so you can just go for it right away. Next you have +5 more damage, pretty useful. +2 defense, extremely useful on a tank, you want it. And then his either or, you either increase all physical damage dealt or increase damage by follow-up attacks. So both of these are fine. Counter attacks aren't follow-up attacks, so if you're planning on having him just use counter attacks, this is what would increase that, whereas this increases follow-up attacks. Both are useful. It depends on your playstyle. And once you unlock one, you can just change it. You can just switch it out as needed. And then we have magic defense up 2. These are way more important than the physical defense because these are, like, this is a weakness in his kit. He has very low magic defense, so these are extremely important to get because he takes so much magic damage, it's unreal. Next we have physical defense 3. I would say before you get this, you should get King's Shield. King's Shield is so much better than a defense increase. Being invincible for a whole turn and just counterattacking things for free while putting guaranteed fury on all enemies within 2 range. Like it's like a diamond shape. It's extremely powerful. It's like probably one of the best abilities in the game, period. Distracts every single enemy within range, guaranteed. And there's no downside because he's invincible. And the invincibility cannot be removed until his turn ends. So like until an entire turn passes and then it's his next turn. So hugely useful. You also have Provoke. TP -1 makes Provoke cost 1 TP. This is good. The only reason I haven't run it is because King's Shield is just so damn good, I just don't need it. But if you want to run this and you want to use Provoke more so than King's Shield, you can do that. The only recommendation I would have is he becomes like a flank tank. So like instead of being like near the center and tanking like large amounts of enemy forces, he just tanks like 1 to 2 enemies at a time. So you can totally run Provoke and not use King's Shield. That's one way. So I would say King's Shield's better though because he's guaranteed to survive. Whereas with this, he can still get comboed to death. So this is still good though. There's no reason not to get this. And maybe he just have 1 TP and you need to provoke some stuff. Alright, and then next we have the increased physical defense by 3. I thought it was more valuable than this, so... Alright, so that's pretty much it for these. I would say this is the best one. So let's talk about using Erador in an actual match now. So you might think, oh, he's a tank. He should be, you know, near the center of the map, pulling in as many things as humanly possible. This is kind of true, but not really. If he's exposed, you have to keep in mind his 4 move. So if he's exposed and he can't escape or he can't get TP from like Medina or something to like King Shield again, he is going to die. So you generally want him to be kind of back with the team. So like the game likes to put units forward in this way, which is extremely dangerous and usually causes them to die. You generally never want to be in the center of any map, ever. So in this case, you can kind of see that enemies are going to come up to us. He can push them off, and then they have to come back up. But he's much better off just tanking, so we'll just begin this. I'll keep these kind of brief, just to kind of like talk about. Generally, he wants to stay with his army. He doesn't want to push out. In general, he wants to stay with his army. He wants to have a healer nearby. He wants to be within range of a healer. And he wants to just like tank, infuriate things, be some backup damage, and draw attention away from enemy or from your units that will die very rapidly if they're focused. So he kind of acts like a bodyguard in that way. So kind of like how Serenoa wants to hang out with the team and deal some support damage and maybe help with defense a little bit. Erador also wants to do this, except he's more of like a utility shutdown. So like Serenoa is like a damage utility and Erador is like a shutdown utility with some damage. Because he can shut enemies down by infuriating them, and then tanking is his utility. So pretty useful overall. So let's see, how does this come up here? I think I can block these off with a fun gimmick. You can take cover, and they can't come up on this side now. So let's see. So this guy's gonna come up. I'll just do like 2 turns with him, because I think like what I explained just now is pretty much all you need to keep in mind when running Erador. So we'll just infuriate some enemies. Yeah, they're coming up. I'm gonna in tandem him just so we can get him moving sooner. Okay, so I could have nowed him too. I'm just realizing that. Alright, so I'm going to Dragon Shield these. Huge, extremely useful ability. Let's Dragon Shield all these. So now Erador has a 1 hit of invincibility. So he's really good with Benedict, because Benedict can Dragon Shield. So in this case, I can just infuriate this normally. So you can see here, it's like around 70%, 75%. It's like usually, so same level enemy, 75% chance to infuriate, unless it's a boss. I can also ram this, which would knock it off. I think it would just fall down to here though, so it wouldn't really do too much. So in this case, infuriate has a pretty low chance to hit, but also you have to keep in mind like what are you infuriating. So I'm infuriating a shield user. These are like low damage tanks that at most will hit like 100 to 150, so they're not the biggest threat. So honestly, it wouldn't even be worth it for him to infuriate. So in this situation, what I'd probably do is just whack this, save TP, and then just save up for Lion Shield. Just put some damage on it. And then we have, you know, Huette here, throw a blind on it, fly up here. Hasabara, she can push this guy just for fun. But that's pretty much what you want to be doing though. Like when you're playing as, or when you're running Erador, you want to think, okay, is it worth it to infuriate these? If there's only one enemy, it's generally not worth it to infuriate, because it has a 75% success rate. So unless it's the king shield and there's a bunch of enemies, it's not worth it. And like in this case, an archer and a shield guy probably can't even kill a single target between the two of them. Like if this was like a guy with a spear, or like this unit here with a sword, then we're talking some serious threats and damage. So he doesn't always have to infuriate things. Sometimes it's best just for him to attack stuff. So he's a few turns out, but that's like the general thing with him. So like right now I'm just saving up for King Shield, and you can tell this guy's coming in. This guy's going to be coming in a few turns. So what I would do is I'd King Shield all of these, probably put blind on this archer, and then just deal with them that way. In this case, it looks like this map's quite easy because they kind of come to you slowly and they don't have like big damage, but you generally don't want to infuriate enemy shield users unless there's like more enemies that can finish things off, because the shield users aren't a huge threat. So like between this shield user, this archer, and this sword, this Glenbrook blade, that could kill something. So he'd probably want to try to infuriate this, or King Shield next to this, just to like waste its turn. But very likely we can kill it between all the damage we have access to. So like right now, we got Serenoa. He can come in with the Hawk Dive, puts it at like 1 shot for like a mage. This dude might even be able to kill it. We get like a combo going. Yeah, he can just shoot it. So you don't always need to waste your infuriates, is my point. And you don't always need to king shield. I would try to king shield when it makes sense and try to conserve your TP. Because otherwise he burns through it really fast. Like if you just keep shield bashing things for 2 TP, you'll never have enough for king shield when it really counts. So that's like those are the main things I would consider when running him. Know when to just use a basic attack, know when to infuriate, know when to use king shield. And those circumstances are pretty simple. So you always want to shield bash, just like use a basic attack for free if there's a thing that's not a threat, or if there's just one of and it can't one-shot something, then you just want to smack it. Save your king shield TP for big threats, or your infuriate TP for big threats. If you do run provoke -1 TP, you could probably get away with spamming provoke even on enemies that aren't a big deal, and that would be fine. Because then they'll hit him and he'll counterattack, so that's, and you know, it'll prevent other things from getting hit as well. So that can be fine. But the way I use Erador, I like the big value of king shield. But you can totally just have him provoke everything if you want. So that's like an alternate play style. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you found this useful, definitely leave a like, drop a comment, let me know what you liked or didn't like about the video. If I missed anything, or if you have any interesting tactics you use on Erador. I always like to see how people play this game. That's one of the big interesting things about this game, is you can pretty much do whatever you want, like within reason, but in a lot of situations you can run drastically different team comps. So I'd also subscribe, because I'm going to be making a ton more content like this. So thanks for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video.